This video has been a long time coming, but first, I know it's been a minute since I've done a long form video, so hi, we're back again. Life has been crazy. We're just trying to catch up on everything, but I have been telling you guys for months that I'm going to do a timeout video. I'm gonna break it down. I'm gonna talk about tantrums, toddler tantrums, and how I handle it. I get so many comments, DMs, questions from you guys asking me, what do I do if my kid hits me? What do I do if they're spitting, screaming, yelling, kicking, thrashing around, all of these things? And I've been telling you for months, it's coming, it's coming. I'm gonna explain it all to you. I'm gonna break it down and it's gonna be this great. We're here. We're finally here, and I am going to walk you through the entire process. So this is how I train my toddlers with the timeout system. But first, if you are new here, hi, my name is Olivia and I am a mother to 7 children. That being said, I am not a medically trained professional. I have not been professionally educated. I am just a mom. I am just sharing my experiences with you guys because as a mom, one of the things that helps me the very most is seeing what other moms are doing and the results that they're getting so that I can decide if this is the best way to parent or best method that I want to use specifically for this situation. So what I've found is the timeout method works the very best for me and my family. First, I want to address some of the controversy around timeout because I know it can be really controversial. Anytime that I use the words timeout, people are really upset. But here's the thing. If I say time in or calm down corner, all of a sudden it makes it better. What's controversial isn't necessarily the method or how I'm training my kids so much as it is the words time out. And I think it's because timeout is typically associated with parents being upset, getting angry and yelling at you and saying, go to your room with no rhyme or reason. It doesn't make sense to the child because it doesn't make sense to the parent. They're just at their wit's end and they're saying, get out of my face. That's what time out used to be. But that's not what timeout is to me. Timeout for me is a way that I am able to create a safe space for my child to feel and experience all of the emotions that's going on. Because as we know, having emotions or having feelings is not a bad thing. It's a good thing and it's what makes us human to have these emotions. So the emotions are not bad. However, emotions can usually, especially heightened emotions, can usually lead to bad behavior, right? Or actions that are not okay. So a timeout is a way that I can say, hey, I see, I acknowledge, I understand, I hear you. I understand that you have all of these emotions and I accept those emotions and feelings that you have. Just like we're taught, right? Gentle parenting tells us, accept those feelings and accept those emotions. But for me, I'm like, okay, I've accepted them. Now what? Now what do I do? If I'm like, hey, I am really angry and frustrated. Okay, if somebody says, oh, I hear you, I hear that you're angry and frustrated, then I'm like, okay, great, but now what? What do I do with those feelings? And especially for children, because they are so young, they are so vulnerable, most of the time, they don't even themselves recognize that that's what's going on. They don't know that they're angry or upset. Most of the time, they don't even know why. They just have a lot of feelings, a lot of emotions. So yes, I am going to accept them, I'm going to hear them, but I'm going to teach them what to do when you feel this way. Instead of just saying, okay, yep, you have them, and then moving on, we have to teach. But if you've ever tried to teach your child or tried to help them through those big feelings and emotions at the height of them, it's pointless. There's nothing that you can do. They are screaming, they are yelling, they are throwing things, they're thrashing around, and nothing that you say or do is doing anything. They can't hear you. It's like fight or flight mode, right? Their brain is not functioning. In that moment, there's literally nothing that I can say or do to help them. So we have to take a timeout. We have to take a break. So I say, okay, here's this space for you where you can feel all of these things. I'm not telling you you can't. It's not a bad thing to feel them, but go sit there and feel them. That's where you can. It's a safe space. They have that time, they have that space to be able to express themselves, to feel all of those emotions. And then once they're done, then I'm able to say, okay, when you're angry, here's what you can do. Now they're listening to me. Now they're not so upset. They don't have too many emotions. So we're able to talk about it. That is what timeout does for me. So it's not the consequence. It's not a punishment. It's not a way for me to get back at them. It's a tool that I'm giving them to be able to calm themselves down, to self-regulate, to have all of those things. And I think that it's funny that every time that I post about using timeouts, people will use the comparison like, well, how would you feel if you were angry and your husband was like, hey, you need to go sit down and time out? If my husband sent me to time out when he recognized that I was angry or frustrated, I would be like, thank you. Oftentimes, I recognize that myself, and when I feel like I'm having a lot of big emotions, I will excuse myself, take some time, breathe through it, calm down, and then go back and readdress the situation. It is not that deep. It is such a good tool for my kids to have to be able to calm themselves down, to self-regulate, and then handle the situation in a more acceptable way. That is why we use timeout. Now that we've explained all of that, let's get into what the process looks like. I have filmed several interactions during this whole timeout training process with River because it just takes time. So I want to show you that progression from where we started, what it looked like throughout the process, and even where we're at now. Let me give you a quick little rundown of what the timeout process looks like so that as you're watching it, it makes more sense. First thing, I find a place in my house that is designated as a timeout place. Then when the tantrum happens, I get down on their level, explain to them they can either choose to be nice or go sit down and time out. If they choose not to be nice, then they go to timeout. When we're in timeout, I sit them down, explain to them they're going to stay there until mom comes back to get them. And then I start a timer. When the timer rings, I go back to them and I ask them, are you ready to be nice or do you need to take more time in timeout? At that point, they can choose to be nice and we're done. Or if they need more time, then we go back, we start the timer and do the process again. That's how I structure my timeouts. The first time that you ever do timeout, this is going to be a new concept to your child, and with anything new that you're introducing, there has to be some sort of training. Children don't just know how to do something. You have to train them. You have to teach them. The way that I start this from the very beginning is when they first start their tantrum, I get down on their level with them and I explain to them they have two options. Either they can choose to be nice or they go sit down in timeout. As I'm explaining this to them, they don't know what the words timeout mean yet, but I use the word nice because it's something that my kids already know. So you don't have to use the word nice. You can use whatever word that your kid already associates with good behavior. That's the idea. So either good behavior or timeout. As I'm explaining this to them, they're not going to understand what that means yet, so then I'm going to take them into our designated timeout area. And I'm going to point to the area and say, this is timeout. And I'm going to show that to them. So either you choose good behavior or you choose to stay in timeout. And I'll show them where timeout is. They're obviously not choosing good behavior, so then I say, okay, you're going to stay in timeout until mom comes back to get you. Then I will place them in timeout and I will walk away, but I won't walk all the way away. I still want to be where they can see me, but I'm not going to make eye contact with them. I'm not going to communicate with them while they are in timeout because I want it to be that separation and that safe space where they're able to stay by themselves. So I step away and I will start their timer for them. I need the time to be just enough time for them to be able to calm down, but not too much time that they forget why they're even sitting a timeout. And because this is the first time, they're likely going to get out of timeout throughout this process. So if they get out of timeout during that timer, I'm going to just simply pick them up, take them back, sit them down, but I am going to explain to them again, you need to stay here until mom comes back to get you. But I don't restart the timer. It's still the same timer until the time runs out. But I will keep taking them back as many times as they get out throughout the duration of the time. When the timer's done, I'm going to attempt to close out the timeout session. So I'm going to go to them, get down on their level again, and explain to them it's time to choose good behavior or you stay in timeout. If it's the first time, they're probably not ready yet to choose good behavior. So I will do it the same as I did the very first time and explain to them, okay, we're gonna take some more time in timeout. stay here until mom comes back to get you. I'll do it just like I did the first time, step away, start the timer, and then if they get out as many times as I need to, I will just simply place them back into timeout and explain to them, stay here till mom comes to get you. After the timer is up, I will attempt to close it out, and I will do this as many times as I need to until they choose good behavior. It can take 2 times, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times. When they choose good behavior and they are done with timeout, I close out the session by having them apologize for the behavior because, as I said, the feelings, emotions are accepted, but the behavior is not. So they apologize, we give a hug so we know we're on the same page, and then we're done. The first video that we're going to watch is the first time that River has ever done timeouts. So as soon as his tantrum starts, I'm getting down on his level immediately and I'm going to start explaining to him either he chooses to be nice or he chooses timeouts. Those are his options. Okay, River. Okay. So you can see he's not even holding himself up. He's pushing himself away from me. He's throwing his head back, everything, even as I'm trying to talk to him, as I'm trying to explain to him it's time to be nice or he's gonna go sit down and time out. Right now, he doesn't know what the words timeout even means, but he knows what nice means. So he's actively choosing not to be nice. Since he's choosing not to be nice, then I'm going to take him into timeout, and then I explain the process to him again, only this time I'm able to say either be nice, which he knows what that means, or, and then I point to timeout, you sit here until I come and get you. So that's the first introduction that he has to timeout. I want you to sit down right here, and mom will come back and get you. So after I explain to him he needs to stay in timeout until I come back to get him, I'm going to walk away, but he can still see me, and then I'm gonna start his timer. For River, I do 1 minute because he's only 1 year old, and 1 minute is just the amount of time that he needs to be able to calm down, but also not too long that he forgets why he's even in timeout. So I start the 1 minute timer, and then if he gets out of timeout throughout that 1 minute, I just pick him up, sit him back down into timeout, but I don't restart the timer. It's just that 1 minute for the whole timeout session. So I pick him up, I give him a hug, I'm trying to talk him through what's going on, and you can see that he's still trying to push me away. He's still very upset and still in the middle of a tantrum. So then I explain to him again, it's time to stay here until I come back to get you. I just restart the 1 minute timer and do it just like I did before, where every time that he gets out, I just pick him back up, sit him back in, but not restart the timer. So this is the second time, and just like I did the first time, I'm going to attempt to close out timeout. So I get back down on his level, I explain to him again, time to be nice. If we can't, we stay in timeout. But like I said, because this is his first time ever doing timeouts, then I'm gonna spend a lot more time explaining that to him and trying to calm him down so that he understands this process. But since he's not ready to be nice yet, we go 1 more time in timeout, and each time that he's getting out of his seat, then I again just put him back in and walk away. Just putting him back in, walking away. I kept it really simple this time because he understands the concept. At the end of every session, then I walk over to him and I get back down on his level and I explain it is time to be nice. If we can't be nice, then we sit back down into timeout. That's the point of timeout, is to help him to calm down. And so after the third time, he finally calmed down. He was able to talk to me and tell me what he wanted now, so we were done with timeout. I always close out timeout with him apologizing for his behavior because, like I said, the emotions, the feelings are okay, they are acceptable, but the behavior is not. So he's apologizing for his behavior, then he gives me a hug so that he knows that we're on the same team, and then we are done with timeout and we move on with life. So now that we've gone over what the very first session looked like, I just want to walk you through the progression of what it looked like over time. So this next video is a couple of days after we first introduced the timeout. So I always start these by getting down on their level. I'm talking to him. He's like limp and lifeless. Tantrum, full-blown tantrum, but I still give him the option or the opportunity to choose good behavior or choose to be nice over going into timeout. Now at this point, he knows what timeout means. So as I'm explaining this to him, I still want him to know that he has those options, but we're much more like direct about it. We just say, okay, You're not choosing good behavior, so let's go to timeout. Let's go. First of all, pardon the mess. This is a toddler bedroom, so it is what it is. I'm still gonna explain to him, but it's much more quick, it's much more direct. I'm saying choose nice or timeout. He chooses timeout, so then I say, okay, sit down, stay here till I come and get you. He's still practicing, and so he does get out of timeout, and I just put him right back in. The first time, there's a lot more explaining, there's a lot more working with him. Now that he's very familiar with the process, it's much more simple, where it's just me here, go sit down, walk right back out, but I'm following the same pattern, following the same process. When the timer is up, then I go in and we say, Kay, are we ready to be nice or do we need to stay here? He's ready to be nice, so then he apologizes for the behavior, we give each other a hug, and then we're done. He's calmed down, but here's the best part is because he's calm, he can start to tell me what it is that he needs. Because that's the problem. Usually when they have so many big feelings and I'm trying to help him and I'm like, what do you want? What do you need? He's so heightened that he can't even communicate that with me. And so that is why I love timeout so much, is that it allows him that time, the space to feel all of those emotions and to self-regulate, calm down, then he's able to talk to me. Like I said, the timeout is not the form of discipline, it's not punishment, it's not even the consequence, it is just to take a break, and then we work through the process with it. One thing I want to highlight in these videos is the location of timeout. For my old house, we didn't have a lot of space, so I set up the timeout spot for him in his bedroom. I don't leave him alone. I'm still right there so he can see me, but we just didn't have a lot of space. In the new house, we have a lot more space, so I was able to pick a more central location. I picked the stairs. That way he can see me around the house. He still feels a part of it. So keep that in mind when you're picking your timeout spot. Try to keep it somewhere where it's central, where they feel still included and involved and they don't feel alone. Another thing that I want to point out is that we do have a designated timeout place in the house, but once they've been trained, it's not necessary that the timeout place stays the same no matter where you are. You can use timeouts in public, you can use them at home, you can use them at a friend's house. In fact, there was a time that I was going grocery shopping and River started to have a meltdown, so I found a spot in the store that was just like a small secluded little corner, sat him down, stepped away a little bit, gave him some time, gave him some space, went back to him, he was calmed, and we were ready to keep shopping like regular. It is just such an amazing tool for them to have and for me to help them with. The most important thing to do is be consistent. You don't have to be perfect. Just be consistent. Following this process, continuing to explain things to them, allowing them time and space to calm down before then you talk to each other. But just be consistent. That's what the process kind of looks like, and it can be days, weeks, months even. After some time, it starts to get to where he can stay in timeout throughout the whole minute timer. And not only does he stay there and not keep getting out of timeout, but he's actually able to self-regulate while he's in timeout during that 1 minute timer, which is the goal. So let's see what that looks like.
Can't be nice, we will go sit down in timeout.
Notice how much better I'm able to communicate with him. Even when he's in the middle of his tantrum, I'm able to talk to him and be like, okay, do you want to go sit down in timeout? Are you ready to be nice? And he's way more receptive. He's way more calm, even in the middle of his tantrum. But I still give him the option, good behavior or timeout. He picks timeout and then I sit him down in timeout. As I'm walking him into timeout, I'm holding him so that he still knows that he's okay, it's okay, but I'm just allowing him the time and the space to feel all of these emotions. So I still explain to him, stay here until I come back and get you. I still start his timer, but as you'll notice, he's going to sit here and he's going to calm himself down. And as he's calming himself down, he's just chill. He's just gonna sit back, relax. He's comfortable. And as soon as the timer's up, I still go back to him, I get back down on his level, and I say, yay, we're ready to be nice, obviously, because he's still not upset. But we still close out the process with the same sorry for the behavior and a big hug to know that we're on the same page. Now here's something. After it's all done, sometimes then I'll say, okay, where's your smile? Because I do like to encourage my children to be happy. It's not something that I'm like, hey, you can only be around us if you're gonna smile. That's not what's going on. It's just something to show him we're ready to be nice, we're ready to have good behavior, and it's okay to be happy now. This one, he's able to walk himself into timeout. So I'm not even taking him there. I say, okay, you chose timeout. He walks himself into timeout, sits down, and he's calmed immediately. We still do the 1 minute timer because that's the process. And in order to see the results, you do have to be consistent. And when the timer's up, he's done, he's happy, he's ready to be nice, and we still close out timeout the same way as we always do. Consistency is key in all of this. So that was him being able to calm himself down in timeout. The next progression is him being able to calm himself without even needing to go sit down in timeout. So what you'll see is I'll ask him if he's ready to be nice or if he needs to go to timeout, and then you'll see him be able to calm himself down and he chooses good behavior.
If we can't be nice, then we will go sit down in timeout. Are you ready to be nice? Okay. Then say, sorry, Mom. Good job. Give me a big hug. Good boy. Okay. Well, listen. It's time to be nice. If you can't be nice, you will go sit down in timeout. Are you ready to be nice? Good job. Say, sorry, Mom.
Seeing him able to regulate himself without even needing timeout is just the confirmation that I need as a mom to know that the timeout worked for him. Like I said, the timeout isn't a punishment, it's not a consequence, it's not even the form of discipline. It's just simply giving him the tools that he needs to be able to self-regulate. Now he's able to self-regulate without even needing a timeout, like an official timeout. We just sit down, we say, okay, calm down. And the point of all of this is that now he's calm enough that I can now talk to him about what he's upset about. So in one instance, then he wanted a specific snack and I said, no, he can't have candy for a snack, but he can have other options. He didn't want the other options, so he started to have a meltdown. He calmed himself down really quick, and then I was able to say, okay, again, here are your options. But he's calm enough that he says, okay, sounds great. So that is the goal, is that they are able to regulate themselves enough to communicate, and that prevents so many tantrums. Not even just prevents them, but it controls them enough that you don't have those big outbursts anymore. Because of the tools that they learn with timeout training, it has lasting effects. So even as my kids get older, it turns into more of, instead of go sit down and timeout, it's when they're having big feelings, I say, okay, do you want to take time? And they recognize that those are big feelings and they want to take time away. So they will excuse themselves either on their own, or they will choose to take some time in their room or wherever they feel safe and comfortable. And then they'll come back to me, we'll talk it out, communicate. And this works for my kids even all the way up into my oldest. So that's it. That's what timeout training looks like. Thank you so much for listening to all of this. I hope it was helpful. If you found anything helpful or if you have any other questions, please let me know in the comments or DM me. I'll do my very best to get to every one of you, to reply to you. I want to help you in the very best way that I can. But thank you so much for all of the support and for being here. Good luck with those tantrums. I'm right there with you.